Regarding the ghost, the apparition that was seen and sighted in and around Highgate Cemetery, and the word around is quite important. It wasn't only just in Highgate Cemetery. The answer is, it was always rumours of a ghost there. I mean, I was born in Highgate, and even as a child I used to hear all these stories about ghosts at Highgate Village and village pubs and Highgate Cemetery. I most specifically heard about it. It was in the late 60s, and there were reports of people reporting a tall, dark figure. While I'm forever explaining this, I am not a vampire hunter. I am a psychic investigator only. How I became one, well, I didn't become one, how I was described as one. I wrote a letter to the local press, I believe it was the Ham and High, asking for information from local people about the sightings of the figure. And quite a few people replied in various newspapers that they'd witnessed the same thing.
Our first report indicated that there may be a vampire in Highgate Cemetery. A spectre was seen at that gate there, appearing to come from here, which leads to the catacombs.
Now, Sean Manchester, the Reverend Sean Manchester, a lot of people might say that vampires are purely the stuff of Bram Stoker and Hammer horror films. You say not.
No. Vampires have been recorded from the beginning of time. Every culture, every civilization has documented the existence of these awesome creatures of supernatural evil. It's only in recent years that the church and the society that we live in, which is mostly materialistic one, has felt embarrassed by the admission that there can be such things as vampires.
Dead foxes have been discovered in the cemetery, completely drained of blood, to the point where the RSPCA inspector couldn't gain enough blood for forensic examination.
What did this vampire actually look like?
A several-day-old corpse with a bluish tinge under the skin. But when you're
tomorrow morning, ladies and
when
gentlemen,
the fur is flying and you're in the
is it tall or
yes,
how tall?
Unusually tall.
So how can we tell who is a victim, a potential victim of a vampire?
Well, obviously there is the growing cult here in America.
What are the signs?
Well, the obvious signs is an enfeeblement, a growing weaker, becoming very anemic, and a taste for a fresh blood. I mean, the young girl whose neck
staying out late at night, perhaps,
earlier on, developed a taste for raw meat. I'm not sure if Keith's aware, but his girlfriend towards the end developed a taste for raw lumps of meat.
She betrayed all the symptoms of a classic case of what can only best be described as vampirism.
On Wednesday, after this confrontation, she ran out into the night. I followed and eventually found her outside the gate of the cemetery at the top of Swains Lane. And in the look she gave me, I knew it had taken her. She was back in the trance again. At about 1 a.m., I was woken by a stifled cry coming from the direction of Elizabeth's room. I jumped to my feet and found her gasping for breath, as if she had been almost suffocated. There were specks of blood on her pillow. I comforted her as best I could and remained there in her room till the daylight hours.
He thought she was possessed at the beginning of her haunting.
What happened to Keith's girlfriend? Perhaps this is an interesting issue.
Well, the antidotes which everyone scoffs at, including our dear Countess Dracula, and says wouldn't harm, they worked.
Perhaps as a result of the media coverage, other parties became involved in the investigation.
The night of the Highgate Cemetery vampire hunt, a little over half a century ago. I speak from first-hand experience. I speak as someone who was there. One chap misleadingly gave the impression that he was amongst that mob, I suppose one might call it, at the gates of Highgate Cemetery in Swains Lane. And his name was David Ferrant.
One particular group of people actually claimed to have located the vampire's tomb inside the columbarium. In fact, this group of people claimed to have actually seen the entity.
Well, I think they're nutcases, actually. That's my opinion.
I worked here all night long, all day long, all night long. I've never seen nothing, so I mean, I don't see why they should see something. This time when they started this vampire business, in the evening time, there's all 100-odd people outside the gates, and they was all trying to climb over the walls, and one person said they see a horrible grey thing wriggling down the road. All this bloody nonsense, you know.
However, David Ferrant was not there, as he would later confirm. He was actually in the Prince of Wales pub, most if not all of that night, until he went home in the opposite direction to Swains Lane. He did, however, 5 months after the initial television interview, enter by illicit means the graveyard armed with a cross, rosary and a wooden stake.
I was taken to court and charged with vampire hunting. Well, actually, that's not technically correct, because you can't be charged with vampire hunting. It's not illegal. I went to court, I fought the case. The magistrate added he was quite satisfied it was not my intention to damage coffins, and he said in any event the cemetery is not an enclosed legal area, and I was acquitted.
It culminated in the summer of that year. 1970, two schoolgirls came across the body of a decapitated corpse on the cemetery path whilst they were having an afternoon walk in the western half of Highgate Cemetery.
And only a couple of years later, the same group of people claimed that the vampire had now fled Highgate Cemetery because of all the interest in its activities.
It was finally tracked down to the bowels of a neo-Gothic derelict mansion on the borders of Highgate.
And they claimed to have discovered it asleep in its coffin in the cellars of this old house.
After much drama, we dragged the contents of the casket out up to the rear of the garden.
And then the person claimed he drove his wooden stake through its heart. His story went on that this thing gave out an almighty roar as if from the bowels of hell, and the vampire turned to a sluggish slime and viscera in the bottom of the casket.
And that was indeed the last of the primary source of the vampire contagion at Highgate Cemetery.
End of Highgate vampire. That's if you believe it was a vampire. But not an end of the Highgate ghost, because these things don't actually work like that.